Hi guys, how are you doing? We haven't seen you in a good while now, but don't worry, we've been busy. It's a lovely cold winter's day up here today in Wicklow, and it's very fresh but it's lovely bright sky. So we're going to talk today about my absolute favourite subject, survival knives. Now, survival knives vary. Here we have what would you consider, I suppose, an apocalyptical kind of survival knife. It's large, it's heavy, okay? Now, a fantastic survival knife, no doubt about that. Full tanks construction, carbon steel, sabre grind. This is great, it's a great survival knife. A dedicated one tool option, fantastic. The thing about it is it's about £1.5, at least £1.5 in weight. And when you go out for a walk in the hills, or if you go out for a day's fishing, it's highly unlikely that you're going to have that on you. Now, what I have on my hip here is a Mora Garberg Carbon. Now, as you know, I've been using the stainless steel Garberg for a long time, but I have since got, when the carbon steel came out, I got a carbon steel one. I favour carbon steel all the time as a survival knife. Now, how I carry this, has a leather sheet. It comes with a great leather sheet. Sadly, it doesn't come with a left or right option. I'm left-handed, but I always have this carabiner here strapped to my trousers, and I have this bright fluorescent, it's fire cord, and it's connected to this, okay, for the purpose that should anything happen I can't lose my knife, okay. The colour of the lanyard is self-explanatory. If you drop your knife on the ground, the woods or in grass, you're going to be able to find it. You don't want to lose this. Incidentally, as I said, this is fire cord, so the inner strand is one strand in this that will take a spark off the back of your knife with a ferro rod. As you know, I've gone through this loads of times. I have my ferro rod connected to this carabiner as well. I also have a regular household lighter there too. So, the benefits of this, and I've always said it about survival. Survival is going to happen when you're not expecting it. So, should a survival scenario going to happen, and I feel that I'm going to encounter a survival scenario, I'm going to have a knife like this. I'm going to have a Tom Brown tracker. I'm going to have a full-size axe, and I'm going to have a bow saw. Okay, and then I'll be prepared for everything. The thing is, I can't go around everywhere with all of those items on me, okay? But I can carry this. So survival happens to two people. The first group of people are not expecting any survival. They're not interested in survival, and they find themselves in a situation where their car breaks down, whatever. They're not prepped, they don't have blankets in the car, etc, etc. The other group that it happens to is people who are not necessarily prepared for survival, but are outdoors people. They've gone out for a day's fishing, they've gone out for a day's shooting, or they're just going out walking the hills, whatever outdoor activity they're into, but they're not into survival per se. Now, the amount of people that I go fishing with, they catch a fish and they need a gut of fish or whatever, and they say, Shane, hey, can I have your knife? They don't carry a knife. The amount of people that I go hunting with that don't bring a knife with them when they're out hunting, they want a knife off me, or they probably want me to punch the rabbit for them. But a lot of hunting men, a lot of fishermen don't actually carry a knife on them, which I just can't understand. But should you be that hunting man or fisherman, this is a knife that will fit the duties of a fishing knife, it will fit the duties of a hunting knife, so it's no burden to carry, as well as being able to survive. Now, what prompted this video today is a guy asked me, I have €100 to spend on a survival knife. What would you recommend? What's the best bang for my buck for €100? Now, not everybody can afford an LT Wright Genesis or a Ray Mears clone or a Jack Law or whatever. They can't afford them, okay? You could be talking 200, 300, 400, €500 for a knife such as that. Now, this knife for €100, you're going to get home and hosed for about between 100 and €105. It's carbon steel, as I said. I prefer the carbon steel. It's also available in stainless steel. With the exception of an LT Wright, I have never encountered such a sharp spine. Okay, the spine is magnificent on it. I'll show you later on. Now, I would compare this in terms of value. I would prefer this to a Falk Niven F1. It's a cheaper knife than a Falk Niven F1, and in my thinking, it does everything better than a Falk Niven F1. I really like an exposed pommel. It has the exposed pommel on it. And another knife roughly in the same price bracket that I would prefer this to is the Tops Brother of Bushcraft. Now, that is a good knife. It's quite comfortable in the hand. decent steel, very strong, sabre grind. But what possessed a company to bring out a bushcraft stroke survival knife that didn't have a 90-degree spine is beyond me. I can't understand that. So we're going to do a bit of battening with this. As I said, it's a Mora full tang knife. So it should be more than, well, I know from using the stainless one, it's more than capable of battening. So Morris Kahansky, he recommends a knife of around the 4-inch blade. So we're battening into this now. This is kind of, I want to say, wrist thick kind of size, which is, to be fair, about as big as you're going to encounter in a survival scenario. Now we've got a good bit of flex going on here. This timber is very, very hard, so it's a good test for this knife. So I'm going to kind of pretty much use this knife fairly exclusively for a couple of weeks for everything. Now that's a gnarly bit of timber indeed, okay. What I particularly like about this knife, and I've always liked Moras, but they're good value for money. I'm not one of the Mora fanboys, I'm not into that. I'm using Moras a long time, I suppose, maybe 30 years using Moras, but they've always been a cheap and cheerful knife. This isn't so cheap, this is a quality knife. It can serve as a survival knife, even though it's only a 4-inch blade. You see, a survival knife doesn't necessarily have to be huge in blade length. What it has to be, and I've always said this before, it has to be big in structural integrity, okay? So this is a 3.2mm carbon steel. I think the steel in it, I'm not sure what it's called, but it's very similar to 1095. It's a sparky steel if you want to use flint, and of course with that sharp spine it's going to really work very well on a ferro rod, as I'll show you now in a few minutes. It's when I got this, and what I do with most of my Scandi blades that I will be using heavily, I do with my Genesis and whatnot, I put a slight secondary bevel on it, okay, because it just makes it so much more durable. Now that's holding its edge very well there, and as I said, that's sizable, you know. And this is seasoned timber. It's hard, and it just shows that, you know, a small knife can get you out of a lot of trouble, and a small knife can perform the duties that you need. Like, I mean, I'd be okay if I only had this for a night. I'd be alright. I'd be pretty happy knowing that I have this knife. The integrity of it is great. It fits really well in the hand. You're not going to have any issues with it. And for €100, and like I said, I'm not more a fanboy or anything like that. There's plenty of them out there nowadays, but it just, when a knife is good, it's good. So we've cut through all that stuff. Now, using a knife like this in the reverse grip, the exposed pommel, which everybody knows I like an exposed pommel, but it's not so deep that it becomes a huge obstruction when you're using the chest lever, okay? And effectively, what you want in a knife like this, of this size, you want it to be able to do a multitude of tasks, because then you're highly likely to have it with you. Now, the 90-degree spine there is amazing, and I'm just going to grab my ferro rod. So as I said, this is the setup I always have. This can't go anywhere. So I have a little bit of jute twine here that I've fluffed up. And I just have a pocket full of feathers that I made here with it earlier on. So just going to show you now how well, like, I mean, it almost feels like the spine has a little bit of a burr on it, but it strikes so well. Okay, so it really does strike well. This is a knife I see myself getting on fairly well with. I know this because when I initially bought the Mora Garberg in stainless steel, and that came out first, it's a knife I tried really hard to like. Not, as I said, not because I dislike Mora or anything like that, but more so because I'm not a fan of stainless steel. I find stainless quite chippy. Now that wasn't a bad stainless steel, but it won't strike sparks with a hard rock or flint. You need carbon steel for this, for that purpose. So I much prefer this. Um, this is a knife, as I said, I'm going to use it exclusively, and I don't know if there's better value out there with €100. Like, I mean, for €100, this is, it punches outside of its weight category. It's a much more comfortable knife to use than an F1. And what I found with F1, although Falk Niven are a great knife, they are, make no doubt about that, but they are very chippy. Falk Niven are extremely chippy knife, and if you're battening heavily, you will experience chips on the edge of the blade. I think that's why they probably use a convex grind on those rather than a flat grind or whatever. So guys, we're going to come back to you shortly and let you know how we're getting on with this with other tasks, fishing, hunting, etc. Thanks for dropping by, guys. See you soon.